Ever had your Octopus V1.1 just die? Everything had been working perfectly. Then right in the middle of a job while probing, my BTT TFT35 screen suddenly went blank. No display, no beeps, nothing. When the machine froze, my first thought was that the screen had just lost connection. I checked the TFT35 cable, but then I noticed the MCU power LED on the Octopus board was completely off, even though the motor and bed power LEDs were still on. At that point, I started checking power. The 24 volt supply was fine, fuses looked good, and I even tried powering the board via USB, but still no response from the MCU. And since the board stopped working right in the middle of a job, it clearly wasn't a firmware or bootloader issue, which is the usual suspect in cases like this. Since the MCU isn't powering up, our next move is to check whether it's actually getting power. Specifically, we need to trace the 3.3 volt supply lines that feed the MCU. Lucky for us, BTT provides a full schematic for the Octopus V1.1 board, and that's going to be a key to figure out where that 3.3 volt is coming from. A closer look at the schematic reveals something interesting. There are two separate regulators supplying 3.3 volts, but they are labeled differently for a reason. One is marked 3V3 and powers external components. The other is labeled 3.3 volts, reserved strictly for internal use, and that's the one we are after. And now that we have confirmed it exists, let's find it physically. In the schematic, it's labeled U15. So let's switch it to pinout diagram and look for U15. There it is, hiding in plain sight. And when we check the board, there it is, our internal 3.3 volt regulator. According to the schematic, U15 is a low dropout linear regulator that outputs a fixed 3.3 volts. And from the datasheet, we can see that this pin right here is the output. But when we probe it, it's only delivering 0.2 volts. Let's go ahead and pull the regulator. Flux goes down first. Then I'll use hot air to safely remove the regulator without damaging nearby components. With the regulator removed, we can test the 3.3 volt rail for shorts, starting with all the decoupling capacitors connected to the MCU's power line. And there it is, a dead short. Since we have confirmed a short on the line, we'll take these capacitors out one by one until the short disappears. That'll tell us which ones failed. One by one, I pulled the caps and checked each for a short, hoping one of them would break the fault. But after removing all 13, the short is still there. That means one thing, the MCU is internally shorted to ground. Next, we desolder the MCU and retest the 3.3 volt rail. If the short clears, we'll know for sure the microcontroller was the culprit. With the MCU removed, I checked the 3.3 volt rail again. And guess what? The short is gone. That confirms it. The microcontroller was the fault. Now that we confirmed the MCU is shorted, I'll order a replacement along with a new voltage regulator from DigiKey. It's crucial to get the exact same part for the MCU, or the board simply won't work. And none of this matters without a bootloader. Fortunately, BTT provides one specifically for this MCU on their GitHub. While removing the MCU, one of the pads came loose. And during cleaning, it just came right off. Happens all the time, not ideal but easy to fix. I'm going to scratch back the trace just a bit. enough to expose clean copper so we can solder a thin wire to it. I'm using a 0.18mm wire. It's a bit tricky to get it in the right spot, so always take your time lining it up. Once it's in place, I'll hold it down and solder it to the trace. It's really important to clean the area before applying a UV mask. That helps it bond properly and keep the trace from lifting again later. I'm going to nudge the wire gently with my tweezers, just to make sure it's solid. Now that the pad's repaired, let's prep the rest of the pads for new MCU. I'm applying a bit of flux, then adding a fresh solder to each pad so we get a clean, solid connection. Five days later, the DigiKey package finally showed up. Inside, 3 fresh STM32F446 chips, exactly what I ordered. Let's pick one and get it prepared for install. Next, we need to align the MCU properly. There's a little circle on the chip marking pin 1, and we'll match that with the circle on the board. Getting this orientation right is critical. Everything depends on it. I'm applying a bit of flux to the pads. It helps hold the chip in place just enough while I align the pins. It's also essential for ensuring a strong, reliable connection. Once it's lined up, I'll tack down one corner pin to lock the MCU in position. Before we go any further with soldering rest of the pins, we carefully check that everything's lined up. A few pins ended up bent. Looks like they got caught in the wire repair we did earlier. I'll take a moment to straighten them out and make sure each one sits cleanly on its pad before we move on. Once everything looks good and the pins are properly aligned, I'll go ahead and solder the rest one by one. Taking it slow here helps avoid bridges and ensure each pin gets a solid connection. It's important to clean off the flux properly. Any residue can cause issues over time. We'll make sure there's no flux left behind before we move on. Alright, let's test for the short. What do you think? Is it gone? There we have it. The short is gone.
No short. No short. No short. No short. No short. No short here.
Next up, soldering the 3.3 volt regulator. I'm applying a bit of flux along with some fresh solder to the pads. This regulator is tiny and the spot's pretty tight, so I'll take my time to align it properly and solder it in place. Solder bridging is almost inevitable with parts this small. I've got a bridge right here, but that's fine. I'll grab some solder wick and clean it right up. Alright, time to clean it up. No flux, no bridges, everything looks solid. Let's plug it in, and there we go. The power LED is on. And we got a status LED too. That one's tied directly to 3.3 volt regulator, so if it's lit, we know the MCU is getting power. Now that the hardware is ready, it's time to burn the bootloader to the MCU. We'll use STM32Q programmer for this. And next, we'll download the correct hex file from BTT's GitHub. This one's for my MCU. Now that we got STM32Q programmer and the hex file ready, it's time to put the board into DFU mode. First, I'll install the boot jumper to force the MCU into bootloader mode. Then, I'll plug the USB cable and hold the reset button right next to the USB-C port for about 5 seconds. Once that's done, we can fire up STM32Q programmer and connect to the board. For the connection type, we'll choose USB. If it's not recognized right away, we can hit the refresh button. Once you see USB 1 show up in the port section, we'll hit connect and link up with the board. With the MCU connected, all we need to do is load the hex file and click download. It'll take a few seconds. Then you'll see a message saying the file download complete. At that point, we can safely disconnect. Now that the bootloader is on the chip, all we need to do is drop the firmware.bin file onto the board and power it up. If the status LED starts blinking, that's our confirmation. The firmware uploaded successfully. And there it is. The status LED is blinking. That means the firmware is in and everything worked. Success. Now let's drop the board back into the machine so you can see it actually running. With the board installed, let's power up the machine and make sure everything responds the way it should. Everything's running exactly the way it should. If you enjoyed this repair, stick around. More builds and fixes are coming soon.